Oh, most definitely. I don't know. Let's just start talking. Fuck it. I I can hear myself. Shit. Mute. Okay. Better. Boo. Um. Shit. Is this here? Oh, it's already live. Cool. All right, boys. We're here. We're live. Welcome to the first-ish episode of the Doghouse on this Doghouse YouTube channel. Uh, I'm Michael Shirley. That guy is Nate Chapman. That guy is Tim Sloan. And today we are missing Senior Justin Gibbs. But that is okay because we're going to jump right into it. What you boys want to talk about today? Papi Chulo. Um, God, it means there you go. Eh? Now that I've seen it though, I've started seeing Papi Chulo everywhere. And like there's a name for that sensation when like your mind focuses on something and you start seeing it everywhere. We were talking about it the other day. I forget what it's called though. Hey, can you guys check the audio real quick? Just to make sure it sounds all right. Yep. Justin just said he can't hear either of you, which is what I was worried about. Yep. Justin just said he can't hear.
Huh. Yeah, I can only hear you, Mike.
That should be fixed now.
That was his plan all along.
All right. There we go. Mike. That should be fixed now.
That was his plan.
All right, yeah. I
Oh,
think it's working now.
Good looks, Joe.
So let me get this straight. Joe is watching the stream, but he's not participating.
Joe, get in here.
Joe, take your shirt off, put a hat on, and get your ass on the stream.
He's got to finish his Bush Light first, guys.
See, look. So the thing is, I thought Joe was like on the wrong path by being shirtless in half of his streams, but then I was watching this show with what's that Burt guy's last name? Some comedian hangs out with Joe Rogan and all those guys. Yeah, that guy.
He's from he's FSU alumni. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever seen.
Reach out to him and get him on the podcast. I guarantee you.
Dude, he's FSU alumni. I bet he'd be about it. I don't know if you've seen the stand-up he was doing where he was talking about being in like the Russian language class at FSU and like going to Russia and robbing a train with the Russian mob.
It's his machine.
It's the machine. Like, dude's A, funny as fuck.
Funny. It was on Netflix for a while.
B, like that story, bro. What? That sounds like a banging time. But I don't know. Seems like a cool dude.
Well, two things. So I'll be honest, I don't find him that funny. He's a funny guy, but like, I don't sit there and listen to him and think like, this is a guy I want to listen to all the time.
Get on my podcast. I just don't find you funny.
Well, I'm not.
Entertain me.
I'm not the FSU alum. I'm not the FSU alum.
Listen,
I would assume that
I haven't seen much of dude's stuff, but if you haven't watched that thing about the machine, like, go watch that and then like let's reconvene on the topic because that shit is fucking.
I'll give it another chance. In the meantime, go watch his. It's like a Netflix special, I think, about him at a cabin.
Yeah, I saw it on Netflix.
Comedians. It was all right. I mean, it wasn't hilarious.
I haven't watched it yet, but it looked all right.
But so the second thing is, and this is where I think Joe is on the right track. One of the things that dude does to be funny is he is constantly naked. Like full blown, not just his shirt, like he's constantly naked. Too. Yeah, I mean, he came out at the beginning of almost every episode. He met the first guest at the cabin, either with his balls all over the place, or his dick all over the place, or his one person he wanted to he was waxing his ass crack, and that was what he wanted help with. It's definitely out there.
Boy.
So I don't know. Maybe
That
Joe.
happens.
I don't know if I see Joe getting that comfortable, but maybe if he drinks
People don't
enough.
just bleach hair anymore. Like why?
Yeah, I saw that on there. I haven't gotten into it, but he is pretty funny. I like his other buddy Tom Segura as well. He's pretty funny too. But it's kind of a different type of humor. Like I appreciate like kind of the darker humor. I know Mike does as well.
That's a name I hear all the time, and I can't picture what Tom Segura looks like. I feel like I should be able to, and I just can't.
Let's find out.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a balding middle-aged dude with kind
Very
of a
accurate
beard
description.
thing.
There's Tom Segura here. I don't know if you guys can
It's kind of bigger set,
see that.
like tall, and
Yeah.
his wife's a comedian as well.
Oh.
I feel like this group that like is all friends came up in like a very recent time, because I used to like be kind of into stand up and like watch it from time to time, and I didn't know any of these dudes. Like I stopped. It doesn't interest me as much anymore, and I don't really recognize any of these people. Now I know now that they all hang out, they all talk, him and like Joe Rogan and all those guys, but like I just never, I don't know, I never really saw them as they were getting big. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Boy. I was trying to bring up a picture of dude because I thought I was doing a screen capture, but apparently it's actually just capturing the Discord chat. Which is actually like a nice thing because now I don't have to worry about like accidentally bringing the chat up and down. But also a lesson learned.
So Tim, you wanted to talk about big tech censorship, or is that something we can talk about while we're streaming on YouTube?
As long as Mother
Is that
Google
allowed?
says so, I think it's all right.
Hey, who owns Discord again?
I have no idea.
Hey Google, who owns Discord?
Discord owns Discord.
Jason Citron.
This funny
On the
looking
website
dude.
sharespost.com, they say, Discord was founded in 2012 by Jason Citron. To find out more, look for the link in your Google Home or Google Assistant app.
Yeah, I guess it's an independently owned company.
Yeah.
For
YouTube,
now.
however, is not.
Twitch was bought by Amazon,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
Yep. That's why they want you to link your Twitch Prime account to everything under the
And
fucking
Facebook bought.
So my
Mixer.
question is, how much longer before there's going to be antitrust laws that are passed to prevent these tech monopolies?
Well, no, I saw.
Like, how much further do you think they're going to let
I
them go?
saw a big, like, literally this morning, read an article about a big anti-monopoly lawsuit on Google, because what they're pivoting on is, so like, I guess you can't remove Google stuff from like Android phones, and so apparently they pay Apple $10 billion a year to make like Google, like put the Google services on Apple, and they're challenging like its exclusivity. They say that they're making it impossible for anybody to compete by having that contract with Apple.
So they already have it with Android, and they're trying to do it with
No.
Apple as well?
They have the contract with Apple, and now the federal government is filing suit against Google as a tech monopoly. I guess they've been investigating for like a year.
Wait, hold on, Mike. You first said it was Android, then you said it was Apple.
No,
Which one is it?
what I'm saying is that the United States government is filing suit on Google for being a monopoly and making it unfair for people to compete with Google. And the large thing they are centering around on that is this $10 billion contract with Apple, specifically because they're already on every Android phone, but they specifically pay Apple to put it on their product.
I see.
And they're saying it is unfair. Let me see if I can find that.
Well, I know they're bringing, I don't know if it's Friday or not, but apparently they were going to subpoena Jack Dorsey and possibly, what's his nuts?
Zuckerberg.
Facebook. Zuckerberg. So that'll be interesting to see. It's usually just a lot of lip service when they do that, but I imagine that, depending on what happens in the election, depending on who's
I posted
sitting where.
Go on record now. Make your predictions. Who's getting elected?
Mike Shirley 2020, baby. Let's go.
Let's go. Mike Shirley for tax collector. Let's go.
Daddy's going to collect. Watch out. I posted a link in the chat. Yeah. So I posted a link in the chat to the CNN article from 11 hours ago that talks about pretty much what I just caught you guys, the YouTube chat.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I can't really take it in the Discord chat because like I've got Discord full screens so that I can capture everybody.
Yeah, I mean they're gonna argue that there's other shit like Yahoo and Bing being one. There's another one. I forget what it's called, but yeah, DuckDuckGo. So they're probably gonna argue that, but in reality, these companies are branching out super far. Like even Amazon Video, Amazon Music, buying.
There's
Twitch,
money to be made.
opening stores, and I mean, I'm not saying it's necessarily like, I don't know. I appreciate the innovation and the growth.
I think at the
same time,
like the federal government's worried about these companies having more power than they do.
Well, it's that, and it's also what happens to small economy when big business, especially when all that money gets consolidated at the top. That while it's not necessarily while it's what people who aspire in capitalism hope to achieve potentially one day, it's not necessarily a great thing. Because again, that's like hearkening back to French Revolution, where the rich had all the money and power.
That's what rich means. I don't know. I was making an argument the other day for like, if 1% has 90% of the wealth, then that makes the other 10% like the U.S. economy.
What'd you just say?
I was saying if, I was hearing this complaint, and don't get me wrong, I'm just talking, but somebody was saying that 1% of Americans have 90% of the wealth.
90% of what wealth?
U.S. wealth? They didn't really specify.
Okay.
But in my eyes, I'm like, okay, so, and this was like stemmed off a whole debate about like rich people sitting on money and not. We're not gonna go down that rabbit hole, but so my thought was like, if 1% of people have 90% of the wealth, and let's just make an assumption that they're relatively sitting on it, and I know like there's a lot of big business movement, but then I was saying that the consumer economy, the money that everybody else spends, is like that other 10% of the wealth. And so we were going down this whole there was a thought like, take money from the rich people and give it to the poor people. And this is one of those problems, like, we keep talking about it, and I never can really come up, like, I can come up with good solutions for a lot of things, but this is one of those things that, like, I really do struggle with, because it's like, if you take money from somebody like Jeff Bezos, right? The guy's got how many, I don't know, $900 billion, something stupid, trillionaire. No, I think that was before the divorce. But anyways, if you take that kind of money from somebody and distribute it among, I don't know, people, the poor, middle class, who do you even distribute it to? Like, what effect do you think that's going to have? What effect do you guys think it might have?
I mean, it depends on how much you're distributing. I had a similar
okay.
Jumped into the black hole, and Facebook debated with people about forgiving student loan debt.
Uh-huh.
It's the same thing. It's the same sort of conversation around like it's the same sort of conversation around like reparations, right? Like, what if we were just to take government money and give like $40,000 to every black person in America? would it actually make any difference? Would it change
Well,
things?
I don't think. I mean, that's like reparations. I think that's a little different from what I'm talking about here.
Well, I mean, it's the idea of inserting wealth into a certain group of people and seeing what happens.
I think the argument was to approach more of an equilibrium of wealth as opposed to just inserting it. You know, like the argument kind of stemmed off that we would put a wealth cap on individual people of like $10 million. So like, instead of them taking all that money as personal income, they would either have to invest it directly back in their business or do something with it. But the thought was they could only have $10 million. I don't like that. Not me. I don't like that at all. But, you know, I'm trying to think, if the way our economy and our country works, you know, it's like, if you give a bunch of people money, you know, like, let's say, what's that number look like? So there's 300 million people. Jeff Bezos has 900 billion. What is that, like 100,000? Is that what that is? 100,000 times, or is it just 100 times? No,
Hey Google, how many people are
times.
there in the United States?
350 million.
I would say 327.
It's like 327, 328.
Google's
I looked this up the other day.
I rounded.
In 2019, the population of the United States of America was 328,239,000.
Hey Google,
I just rounded down to 300 to make math easy. But yeah, so how many times does 300 million go into 900 billion?
Is that his net worth?
At least that's what somebody said.
Which, in net worth, I mean, the other
it's not liquid.
Net worth, if I'm not mistaken, it's not just liquid.
No, definitely not liquid. And we went down that rabbit hole too, but
I think we're overestimating. This says, as of August 26th, Jeff Bezos becomes the first person ever worth $200 billion.
200. So maybe, okay, so it's like, and it's got to be Amazon worth that then. Okay, so let's back this up.
Well, Apple was the first company to reach $1 trillion in market value.
All right. So if we took all of his money, except for his 10 million, and we gave it to everybody, boy, we get $609.72, boy. Yep. Hey, buy a new grill. That sounds like a stimulus check. Shit. I don't know. Yeah, my argument was like, if these guys are consistently making money and you're just giving back to people, I feel like businesses would be like, oh, there's more money. Shit's just gonna get more expensive. And then they're just gonna take that money back. So even if you take all this wealth at the top and try and push it back into the bottom, like, everything is going to inflate and increase so that all that wealth ends up making its way back to where it was.
So I think part of the complaint that a lot of people have is, like, especially after the financial crisis back in 08 and kind of 11, you know, you saw bailouts at the highest level, at the super wealthy level, in those large corporations too big to fail. And I think people felt that as if, you know, they have basically carte blanche to do whatever they want within the American society with whomever's money they want and still reap all the rewards because they're still getting all those bonuses. So I just think that there's a perception of inequality, which I think probably is founded in reality. And that perception is part of the problem because, you know, in practical application, I think that there is a necessity for large corporations at the top to drive innovation and cheapen the cost of goods enough to be manageable for the vast majority of people. But at the same time, there's also necessity for a large group of entrepreneurs and middle class people who are self-sufficient outside of corporate life. So it's kind of it's, you know, like everything in moderation. And I think that's a lot of how the economy is trying to work. But whenever, you have legislation that's influenced directly by these corporations through lobbying or perception based on bailouts, or when you see Jeff Bezos gain $90 trillion in net worth over 9 months of COVID, when so many people are
90
now
trillion?
hurting to figure out whether
90
I think
billion.
or $90 billion, yeah, $90 billion growth, and people are trying to pay rent and mortgage, and we've been fortunate, we've been able to keep our jobs, so
Heard that.
it's not something I've really had to stress out about, but a lot of people who don't. So I think that's part of the problem is not necessarily a flaw in the structure, more as in an abuse of the system and a perception issue.
Yeah, but I don't know. Those two things are different. You're talking about corporations that get bailed out, and then talking about Jeff Bezos. But Amazon's not it's not a company that ever got
At least
bailed
not
out.
yet.
Well, no, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that when you have a company that's got, what was it, like 20,000 employees that got COVID, and they had to work overtime and all of that, and none of the money, I don't know exactly what their bonus structure looked like, but I would put money on it that it was nothing nice of hazard pay for what they ended up doing. I can imagine it's going to leave a lot of their employees upset. And, that's just one company. Walmart did the same thing. How many Walmart employees were exposed to, the virus, and how many people were laid off, and how many businesses are closing shop, especially small businesses who are looking at these giants saying, okay, well, if I were bigger, then I would be, COVID proof, I guess. So I just imagine that whether or not Amazon's doing well directly affected you, if you are having a tough time and seeing that, it doesn't matter whether or not it actually had an effect on you, because it had an effect on you, or at least your perception.
Yeah.
My frustration is more with the bailing out of anybody at all in general. I mean, and that's so like people who are against capitalism, there's a lot of people, the new thing now is to hate capitalism, right? But if you believe in true capitalism, if you support true capitalism, you don't like bailouts for anybody. It doesn't matter. Like, if a business can't sustain itself, it should fold. Like, that's how capitalism works. So bailouts of any kind, whether it's small business bailouts or it's large corporation bailouts, it shouldn't be like that. And the thought process. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say I would agree, except when the government is the one who is forcing you to shut down.
Yep. Well, and that's the other part of it. I don't think the government, I think, Americans should be able to make their own choices. Yeah. So it's funny. I have, which hopefully this doesn't get big enough for them to ever see it, but I have an aunt that has been very controlling of my grandmother on my mom's side about, don't go out. You got to stay in. We'll go get your groceries for you. There's been a couple times where my grandma's gotten in trouble for going to like a farmer's market and something. And I remember talking to my stepdad about it. And he's like, Grandma's how old? Like 80 something. She's a consenting adult. She can make her own decisions, right? Okay, well, why are we telling her what to do? Like, if she wants to go out and risk getting COVID, then let her go out and risk getting COVID. Like, if she doesn't want to go out, then she doesn't have to go out. And we're willing to help her out. But why do we have to force her to stay inside? I don't know.
I can understand the government enforcing policies, perhaps maybe specific to areas like hospitals or things of that nature where it's critical infrastructure. But I would tend to agree with you. Free will is a constitutional right. You have the ability to go out and be a part of societies, and they can order you to stay in your house and do other things for a prolonged period of time. I mean, I know that there's executive orders for emergency situations, but and at this point, I don't know anywhere that's still locked down, quite frankly, but the damage has been done to a lot of these small businesses.
Well, apparently
it's not just the United States though that's being hit by this stuff too. Like, even the places that did lock down are now getting hit again. Like,
Europe, we were just talking about it today. There's a big COVID spike again, and I think they were saying a lot of European countries were potentially looking at shutting down again.
Well, what was it about the WHO the other day that came out and said that quarantining, or not quarantining, but stay-at-home orders were not good? I thought I saw an article coming from the WHO about that.
There's been a number of things that have said that in the
And that's
research. Nobody knows.
That's part of the other
Nobody
problem
knows.
too.
Yeah,
it's exactly what
it's all
knows.
speculation. It's, I don't know. You can make an argument for a lot of things.
Yeah, and in just stripping away constitutional rights on obviously faulty information, it just doesn't seem like it's a smart choice for the history books.
I mean, the biggest thing is just stay away from old people. Don't go near fucking old people.
That's,
like,
well, you
if you
saw
stay
the
away,
that's ageist.
Governor of New York putting people, COVID patients in retirement
It's for their own
homes.
good.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Well, that goes into the media and how he's portrayed, even though he did that.
Chappie, YouTube policy, I'm pretty sure, says we can't discriminate against age. So as far as worrying about infecting people with COVID, I think if we continue to stream on this platform, we have to infect everyone equally. All right, yeah. Just want to make that clear,
Okay.
Google.
I'll book a trip to Iowa. Grandma, we're coming to visit.
Not to say you should knowingly infect people. Don't do that. That's bad.
But no, that's my thing is, like, you know, if you as a business owner, and I get that, like, look, I get that starting a business is tough. I get that margins are thin early on. I get all of that. But if you as a business owner, just like you as a homeowner, you have to have an emergency fund, right? I mean, Mike, you're a homeowner. Tim, you're a homeowner too. You guys either have or are putting together emergency funds, correct? So if your water heater goes out, you got money to replace it, right? And why do you do that?
Financial security.
Because bad shit fucking happens. Like, eventually bad shit happens and you're either prepared for it or you're not. And if you're not prepared for it, why is that anybody else's problem but your own?
I understand the argument, Chappie, but I think you're failing to appreciate the one outstanding factor, which is the human factor. And whether or not it's fair or just or whatever, I feel like regardless of that, their emotions are still going to probably lead the way at the end of the day.
Emotions. I mean, Chappie's right. Like, I don't know. It depends on the reference frame. I feel like, because from an individual business perspective, yeah, I mean, you probably should have some kind of plan for if shit goes south. Now, you know what that plan looks like. You can plan for a fire. Maybe you could plan for, I don't know, a flood. Pandemic's a little different. You know, you never really thinking about what happens if people just stop coming here for months. You know, a lot of people have a rainy day fund for, 3 to 6 months, but it's like some places, it's a little longer than that. So I mean, it is a little difficult.
Well, and it also factors in if the government's the one shutting you down. Like, if a pandemic doesn't shut a business down. The government shuts the business down.
I think I think there's a difference between people electing not to go somewhere because of, like, worry of getting sick versus like being mandated. You're not allowed to do business here.
So that's where I kind of go back and forth a little bit on it, on whether I think it's appropriate to help people out. But my first thought process is the government shouldn't be shutting shit down to begin with. And if they're not shutting shit down, the businesses shouldn't be shut down. They're open, and if they survive, they survive. If they don't, it's like, I don't know, man. The first thing I did when this all started happening was I looked at my bank account and I said, all right, I've got this many months worth of rent in my bank account right now. And I immediately felt okay, because even if I lost my job, we were good for an extended period of time. And so the thought process being that I've saved up that money over time and we're in a good place. But like you hear about all these people that are getting evicted and that are, that can't pay their rent and all this stuff. Like, how much money did they have saved up? Were they saved up for 6 months and then it just ran out? Well, okay, then maybe that's understandable. But like, we're what, 6 months into this at this point? I mean, we're 6 to 7 months into, like, full on pandemic.
I don't know. So, I think it's a deeper seated issue, right? Because for you and I to save money is a lot easier than a lot of people. You and I make more than the average household income. So we got a little extra money that we could save. And honestly, I'm horrible at saving, but we make a lot more money.
But you can afford to be horrible at saving because you make a lot of money. It's okay to be horrible at saving money when
you just don't get that same lifestyle. Yeah. I mean,
it's look, and I don't know everybody. I don't know everybody's situation. This is not a blanket statement about all people, but I think in general, people, especially people our age, are not good with finances. They don't understand how finances work. They are very quick to think they have more money than what they do.
I think that's the majority of
They
Americans.
don't understand. Yeah, well, probably. But I think even more specifically, our generation is bad about it. But these people that live paycheck to paycheck by choice, could be saving money, could cut certain things out of their lifestyle, but choose not to, and then live paycheck to paycheck. It's problematic. And it's not, in my mind, it's not necessarily anybody's fault but their own. And my problem comes up when it comes to helping people that aren't helping themselves. If you're going to come into my pocket and get help, that's fine, but you better have exhausted every single option within your own power. You better not have cable. You better have that AC turned down or turned up, depending on how you're looking at it. I mean, you better be doing everything you can to be saving money before you come asking other people. And the reason I say this, because that's how I feel like I would approach it. I would not, and family is,
family's a slightly different thing.
It's different. If I'm going to Joe Schmo taxpayer, a guy who I know nothing about,
I feel like he doesn't owe you anything.
Exactly. And so if I'm going to ask him for help, I'm going to be on my last fucking leg before I'm asking that guy for help. Because it's just not appropriate. It's not, but that people don't want to fucking do that. It's the same thing. I don't know. It's like
in my humble opinion, and take it for what it's worth, from a sheer perspective of just existing on this planet, if you can exist another day, I'm okay, you're doing what people have done for thousands of years. You know what I'm saying? When you think about people in shithole countries, or you think about people throughout.
Donald Trump over there.
Well, no, I'm just saying. I'm leaving a very loose definition.
Low standard.
Not even low standard. You define shithole how you define shithole. I'm talking, whether it be health, safety, whatever, shithole country. I'm also talking about just existing in past times. For thousands of years, right? People didn't have credit cards. People didn't have cars. People weren't eating steak dinners. They're eating fucking grains of rice. Be fortunate to get half a bowl. You know what I'm saying? People go to sleep. They shit, they piss, and they wake back up. Maybe they don't shit, piss in their sleep. Maybe the order is a little messed up there. But my point is, they go to sleep and they wake up. After so many years, they die. People want to make that existence more comfortable, and I get that. I get that. You get a nice roof over your head, you got somewhere to sleep, and a lot of people who are, I'm not going to go down the homeless route right now, but it's people would love to have a roof over their heads. I get it. I get it. That shit costs money. You could build a tiny home for $5,000. You know what I'm saying? And you could have a roof over your head. Maybe you couldn't fit your drum set in the back. Maybe you couldn't set up a YouTube studio like we're trying to do right now. Maybe you couldn't do that, but you could exist. Is that enough? I don't know. But
So I got into this debate. This is part of what the debate. So the debate started out on Facebook of someone shared that Joe Biden came out and said he was going to forgive student loan debt if he was elected president. It was going to be all public university undergraduate student loan debt. So I think that
boy, right? I might have to take Joe Biden for 4 years, baby.
Well, look, so here's the thing.
My vote.
So here's the thing. You're right. You and your situation actually kind of helped inform my opinion on the issue. So it was public student loan debt, and it was private historically black college student loan debt. So not just private universities in general, but historically black private universities. Again, this is someone could, if somebody's actually going to watch this, they may crucify me on it because I'm going off of what I remember from an article I read like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. But and it was going to be like a certain percentage maybe of graduate student loan debt. But anyway, I commented on it, and again, my thought process was kind of what I've said here, is that I don't like the idea of taxpayers being on the hook for student loan debt of everyone, whether the people are working hard or whether they're not. And I say that as thinking of examples. So for example, you have undergraduate student
Yeah, I
loan
probably
debt, right?
still got like
That you're
27 grand.
Okay. And you make good money and you're very financially secure. You don't need your fucking student loan debt paid for by anybody. I'm sure you would love it.
Right. You want to give me 30 grand? Like, bet. Hey, bud.
But you've bought a house.
My car is paid for. I got it. No,
yeah,
so
you're not.
We got into this the other day, and it's like, so the private black colleges thing, like, I get. I get it. With everything going on in society, like, I understand that. But from the perspective of the federal government paying for it, and, maybe it's reparations. I don't know. But you said public universities, and I'm like, yeah, public universities, federally funded. Bet they're public universities. Then you started to say private universities. I'm like, no, why would you ever do private universities? Like, private universities. I had friends who went to Miami or just FIT here where I'm at. Bro. People spend in a year at the college here what I spent for my entire college education. And and it's like, okay, so people.
Bro, I went to a private school. My school's like a $50,000 a year school. I get it. I'm on board with you.
You know what I'm saying? And that's a choice. I went to a public university because I could take student loans out. My parents weren't well off. They did their best to raise me, but they live paycheck to paycheck.
How much of your college did your parents pay for?
Like, none of it.
They didn't pay
No,
for
but that's not to say they didn't help out. Like, sometimes for a while they actually like paid. They started making my car payment, which was fucking awesome. That was like $210 a month I didn't have to pay. But I was working. At Sears going to school. I worked there for 7 years throughout my entire college education. I took out student loans so that I could go to school. I'm not going to go to a private school that costs 40 grand a year if I'm taking out loans, because that's a fuck ton of money to pay back. If I get a 4-year degree at a $40,000 or $50,000 a year school, I'm paying $160,000 to $200,000 back, like, total.
Well, you're almost certainly. So, like, for example, Wabash was 45.
Did you get like grants though?
But I had scholarships.
Right.
I think my baseline scholarship was like 7.
In scholarships and grants, that's a different story. From my perspective, I was a bum ass. I didn't apply for a bunch of scholarships, even though, let me tell you, my mom always on my ass. Like, you need to be applying for scholarships. You need to be applying for grants. I'm a bum ass, never did.
Well, with private schools, a lot of them are not like, a lot of it comes through the college. So like Wabash, for example, I didn't apply for the scholarship that I got. It was something that came to me through like a financial aid package based on my need and my parents' income.
My buddy had the same thing.
Calculate that up.
But so I'm taking loans out to go to school. So obviously, like I described earlier, like all a person can ask for is to exist. Now, if I'm existing and I know that I'll be existing for a little while, I probably want to do it comfortably with some nice lighting in the background, maybe, so I want to make sure exactly. Like I understand. Well, at least I thought I understand. The older I get and the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know shit. But at least when I was young, I thought I understood how the world works. And, from the shit I saw, the comforts I wanted, they all had one thing in common, and that's that they cost money. So, when I'm looking at what I should study in college, I'm like, all right, let me go do something that makes money. And, I got kicked out of mechanical engineering just because I was a bum ass, bad grades. Came back to FSU, got a physics degree and a math degree. What the fuck am I going to do with those? I don't know, but I'm here now. Figure I'd be smart enough to get a job somewhere. Hell, I've been working at Sears part-time, making $35,000 a year. Part-time. So don't tell me you can't make money.
Yeah.
But I think the big problem with this shit is it's like, you get these people who go to school for, you know, excuse my language, these fuck ass degrees. Like, I mean, if you're artistic, that's great. You know what I'm saying? Like, I guess from the perspective of sharing knowledge, it would be nice if you could like share knowledge, but going to read books about art, like, okay, you can get educated, you can do that on Google for free. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to pay people for that. That, in my opinion, that kind of stuff is a hobby for the most part. Not saying you can't make money in there, but there's not a large job market, you know? So it's like when you're going to study things, you need to look at what the job markets are like, see what people are hiring, and then pick a degree if that's your goal. But if you go to school for some degree that doesn't have a banging job market, you get, you know, $30,000 to $300,000 in debt, and then you're like, I can't find a job. Like, no shit. What are you looking for? Like, for, you know, I feel like some people look for pity. Like, you know, poor me, I can't find a job. I've been here all this time. And normally I'm like, you're either not looking hard enough, or you pick the wrong, like, even picking the wrong degree, you can still get a job. You know what I'm saying? May not be what you want to do, but it'll pay you money. But it's like, I don't know. I don't have sympathy, because you're right. Like, I took out loans. I got a decent job, and now I'm paying them back. And I promise you that with my education that I have, I am definitely living a better lifestyle than I would have without the education. And I'm paying it back. And it's like, I don't mind, because I knew I was borrowing the money in the first place so that I could be here today where I am.
So a couple things before I forget. So the other thing too, so this idea that he's going to forgive debt. So imagine this, right? So you and I kind of are similar situations, but we took different paths. I focused very hard on paying off all my student debt.
I haven't done that. I'm like, one day I'll make more money.
And, well, but you did. But so you went a different direction, but it wasn't like, it's still not a bad direction. You purchased a house. You started building equity. It's an investment. Sure. It's a positive.
We all play the game differently, but in the right direction.
But the point is, each one's a positive step. We're doing things differently, but we're both going in the correct general direction. Well, if Joe Biden rolls in and says, you know what, Michael Shirley, you're still
should have picked a better plan, Chapman.
Then I'm just like over here like,
sucks to suck, nerd.
If I didn't know this was coming, I would have bought a house. Like, it's like,
well, hold on, let's back up. Because you said it yourself. You said you went to a private school, brother.
Yeah, no.
And last time I looked at your skin tone, Joe Biden would not have covered your debt.
Not a historically. No, I'm not. It's not.
But I did go to a public university.
but a lot. So that's just Joe Biden's plan. And look, it's not even his plan. It's just some bullshit he's saying.
Probably wouldn't happen. Okay, so let's see. If Joe Biden gets elected, I am curious to see if I actually get my debt forgiven. If I do, fuck right, boys. Like, I'm telling you.
Joe Biden will push it, knowing that the Republican-controlled Senate won't let it through, and you'll say the Republicans.
They're enemies. They're the devil.
All the Republicans.
I don't know.
No.
Well, the way they'll do it is they'll pair something else with it. They'll make it so it's corporate.
Tim, what happened to your swanky audio? You sounded so nice.
I know. I couldn't figure out how to get these paired back up, so I was half the time.
Guys, we're gonna. Cap. All right, guys. Sorry about that. We had to fix Tim's audio. He switched headphones. We had to rebalance it. We're good to go. Hey, okay. Wait, is this okay? I'm not sure.
Damn it, Mike. Now we're gonna get.
When I was diving, they taught us dive underwater. This means okay.
Yeah. Well, that's just your privilege being able to dive.
You're right.
Well, so that's where the conversation went next too, was privilege. So it went straight into race, which I didn't really understand why it needed.
Why
to
is
go
everything
there.
gotta be
again,
race?
all of the examples in my head were informing what my stance was and where I was coming from was based on other white people that I know. So I thought of you, and I thought of how you again, the whole thing with your house. And then I had a buddy that out of college, I remember talking to him shortly after graduation and talking about how I really wanted to focus on my loans. I wanted to get them paid down. I didn't like the fact that I was, having to pay $700 a month just towards student loan debt.
Sure.
And his response was, I think I'm just gonna pay the minimum and hope that it gets forgiveness. And I'm just there, and I just remember thinking, what the fuck? And look, here's the thing. And there was another situation I outlined, but I'm going back and forth with this guy. This guy's born in I think it was 1969. He's a black guy. He lives in Fort Wayne. I looked him up. He's some VP of some company. Intelligent guy. I think he even mentioned he had a PhD. No qualm against him as a person or the way, he had a couple arguments that were a little disingenuous, but it gets into all this stuff about race, and I end up outlining, look, these are the friends I'm talking about. They're all white people. What are you talking about? And he's like, his comment was, I've never met anyone like your friends. And basically suggested that people like that don't exist, or if they do exist, they're very, very limited. And I'm like, motherfucker, you're born in 1969. Of course you don't know them. They're in my generation, not yours. How many 25 to 35-year-olds are you hanging out with on a regular basis and talking about finances with? None. Very few.
Yeah. Education's this definitely changed a little bit.
Know them, this idea that it's okay. I understand that there are African Americans out there whose situations I cannot possibly fathom because I have not been exposed to those people or their types of lifestyles, and I understand that, and I
those people.
I form.
You said those people.
Those people, like the people that he was referencing throughout his entire rant. But I can recognize that and formulate my opinion around it and understand it. Meanwhile, he's over here telling me about those people, the people that I'm not taking into account, apparently. Meanwhile, he's not taking into account the people I'm talking about, which are the white folks who are just sitting around waiting for their college debt to be forgiven because Democrats have been talking about it for years now. So, I don't know. And he's convinced himself they don't exist. So the bottom line for me, real quick, the bottom line for me is if you're working your ass off to pay back your student loans and you're working multiple jobs and you were preyed upon and probably ended up going somewhere you probably shouldn't, probably paid way too much money, maybe didn't get the best the best rates on your loans.
Bad life choices.
Well, bad life choices, but I'm willing to work with that person because that person's at least working themselves. I got no time for the person who has all the same circumstances but doesn't want to get a second job because I don't want to get a second job.
I think it's just a matter of people not wanting to take responsibility.
Yeah. Which, and again, it went into all.
I'm pretty sure my mom used to work when my mom, she was a single mother with my older sister. I'm pretty sure she worked 3 jobs.
My dad worked 3 jobs as well. That came up in the conversation.
I don't know. I feel like my parents taught me good work ethic. And maybe that's the difference. I feel like out of you guys, your parents probably taught you pretty decent work ethic.
There's another side, I think, of the argument that I don't think you guys are considering as well, though. And I think, again, this kind of goes back to the perception.
Are we going to put Tim in the dock? Real quick, before we dive too far in this, I want to make this thing where, when somebody goes down a rant and we're all we can, vote to, put one of us in the doghouse and, put a little doghouse over our thing and be like, you can't talk right now. But anyways, go on, Tim. Sorry. I forgot to tell you guys about that.
So what I was saying is, again, I think it's another part of the perception where you have universities who have gone up in tuition rates by I don't know, it's 250% in the last 20 years.
That was definitely covered in the conversation. I get what you're saying.
Housing markets that are going up significantly as well. The education itself at higher levels of education is probably the quality is going down, or at least the mentality of learning things outside. I mean, shit, they're saying math is racist now, by the way.
Adjunct professors.
Interesting.
Tenured
I never heard that one.
Well, no, I'm just saying, if you're in a liberal arts school, you probably don't have to take, certain biology or chemistry or stuff like that.
I don't know.
I just
pause. I went to a liberal arts school. I took chemistry 101. I took.
This guy's got an English degree, but you hear these science classes, he took them. All right.
And I took
Or did you have to?
calculus. I didn't have to take those specific classes, but I had to
Like
get
A
certain
science.
credits. Well, it was like at least 2 credits in this category, at least 2 in this category. So for example, I had to take a psych class. I took Psych 110, which was psychology.
I took
of
a psych
fatherhood.
I
class.
took a psych class too.
So I took psych. I took 2 psych classes. I took chemistry, physics. I took statistics and probability statistics.
Taking a few of those.
I took calculus.
Well, my point
You've
is
taken calculus? That makes me feel so much
of
better, Chappie. Like,
dude, I
the
took calculus in
quality
high
of
school.
the first time you told me you had an
education
English
has gone
degree, I
down.
was like, ooh. But you've taken so many math
the
and
only
sciences.
point I was going to make is that the median income has not gone up anywhere close to the rates as everything else around.
Yeah.
So it's
But I mean,
costing the same average household almost twice as much to send a kid to college as it did, 30 years ago. So it's a different situation now. You have a bunch of MBAs, which, I have an MBA, so I'm talking shit about myself, but you have a bunch of MBAs leading these colleges, and all they're worried about is the profit margin. They're not concerned with quality of the education or with getting people into the academics, at a reasonable cost. They're just trying to make as much money as possible. So I mean, and I think people see that, and part of the reason why so many people are frustrated with their student loans is because they feel like they were overcharged. And I'm not saying that's an excuse to not work and try to get it, taken care
what
of.
is
yourself.
overcharged though?
Yeah, I think it's the frustration that people.
If you went to one of those private
And
schools like Chappie and spent 50 grand a year on a degree, yeah, I'd probably agree you were overcharged. But it's like on this, and he doesn't even think. Maybe he doesn't even think he's overcharged. I would say overcharged, but it's like what is overcharged
with the prices at Florida State?
Well, look, like,
Yes,
so
sir.
here's the thing, man. You talk about the English degree, like, so look, English degree, yeah, I get it, and it's reading books.
Well, no,
and stuff
for
like
me, it's
literary
profit.
text.
Like, just when I look at an English degree, my first thought is like teacher. That's not to say you couldn't work, I guess, in like a book industry or something. But I just don't know what the jobs for that look like. And I've always think teacher, and teachers don't get paid a lot. And that's kind of where my head was.
Even at grad school level, you have $120,000 of student loans when you get out of law school. And what? That takes you another fucking 20 years to pay off because you're only making maybe 60 to 70K out of law school. Maybe. You don't make good money until you down the road.
Get a private practice.
Yeah, so or you just move up the ranks in the practice that you're in. But right out of college, you've got almost $150,000 worth of debt. Medical school's worse. I mean, you get out with almost, I don't know, it's either $250,000 to $500,000 in student loans. And then you got to work your ass off for the next 20 years just to pay them down. I mean, granted, once you get past that barrier, you got a lot of money, but that's a lot of time with a lot of debt.
Yeah, but you've got debt hanging over your head. But without that debt, what's your earning capacity? Like, without that degree, what's your earning capacity?
The statistics show that the college graduate makes roughly $1 million more in a lifetime
Only $1 million
than the high school graduate. Yep, than a high school
given
graduate.
some of the college grads I know, sure.
But here's the thing too, though, and this is kind of what this may go against what you're saying, to be honest. I don't think it's so, like, say that statistic by itself doesn't really say anything because every college, like we've been saying, every college degree is different. So saying college graduate, that can mean so many different things. And then the second part of that is how many people really truly stop at high school graduate. So they're getting a GED, or they're getting they're getting a 2-year associate's degree. They're getting some sort of certification. They're going to a trade school. Like, the majority of people are not stopping at high school graduate. I think that also loops in people who don't work, high school graduates, women who become stay-at-home moms, stuff like that. So I don't know, but that's the stat that they threw out. This was all part of this whole conversation I was in that came up. But if I may, just to defend the liberal arts degree for a minute, English for me was not. I mean, yeah, it was about reading books.
Button,
yeah, click the doghouse. It's well, look, hey,
Just
kids are not
shut him
making
up.
pretty good money now.
And you know, that's the thing, you know, it's like you've got an English degree and you ended up in sales. Maybe it taught you how to speak. I don't know. But like the degree itself.
It's not that it taught me how to sell, but it taught me the skill,
I was saying
speak. Set. And that's really.
I was saying it taught you how to speak.
Well, it's speaking. It's effectively communicating. Yeah. But it's also staying on top of tasks and stuff like that. But that's kind of the whole Wabash's whole thing is like, you know, you can major in whatever the fuck you want. We're going to teach you how to be a successful person, how to be effective in whatever you're doing. And this is how you do it by, you know, writing effectively, by communicating effectively, by doing all of these sorts of skills that can fit into any number of jobs. Now, obviously, I'm not going to be able to go code with a fucking English degree.
It's not to say you can't make money, though.
Yeah, certain markets are just going to require a very specific skill set. But for any market where a general skill set that's honed and that you're good with can be used, you're good to go. I mean, you can find your place in it.
Well, I'll be honest with you. A lot of my work has very little to do with my degree.
There you go.
So it has more to do with my...
What's your degree?
But I'm mechanical engineering. So, you know, in sales, selling electrical product, there's very little mechanical engineering that goes into it. But the thought process and the critical thinking from college, that kind of translated, but that's soft skills. You get to learn that through other means, whether it's working, you know, the 4 years, instead of paying money to learn, working for 4 years, getting paid to learn. It's a completely different thing. I don't know. I don't think college is for everyone. I think it's a good thing to do if you can afford it and if it's your calling. But I think to your point, you know, with the trade schools and everything else, it's not a necessity. And there's always a need for a welder. There's always going to be a need for a plumber.
Well, we might have machines to weld, but... And I was going to make a slight argument, too. It's a little different for... I was going to mention it earlier, but you started talking about doctors and lawyers, and it doesn't necessarily apply to doctors and lawyers. I don't necessarily know why it couldn't. But, you know, for, like, my master's degree and, Tim, your master's degree, well, I don't even... Did you had your company pay for the master's, right? Or did you end up paying it yourself?
Partially.
Yeah. So, like, my company pays for my master's degree. As long as I take, you know, don't exceed a certain level, so I'm taking the classes at a certain pace so that it's fully covered. But I'm not eating that debt. Well, unless I quit. Then, I'm on contract. That's a whole nother thing. But they're paying for that degree, you know, and it's like a lot of people do still elect to stay in school and get another degree because they can't find a job or don't look for a job right out the gate, when these large corporations are still willing to pay to further their education. Granted now, you don't just get to live that college life for another 2 to 3 years. You know, you're fucking working and they're paying for it. Yeah. It's a whole different thing, but you can get it, you know, and that's kind of back to the thing. It's like, if you want to fuck off in school for 3 years, like, that's a different thing than just nonstop busting ass. Not saying people who are in school don't bust ass. Like, I was in school. I know I busted ass, but I'm sure, yeah, there's a lot of university living. We'll call it that.
Yeah, the biggest thing is people who start school, take out loans, and then don't finish too. I mean, maybe not the biggest thing, but one of the biggest things, because then you're on the hook for that debt, and you didn't get the fucking degree, so you're not seeing that increase in your pay. The majority of like defaults on student loans are people who don't finish. So you gotta know, you gotta know that it's what you want when you go to school. You gotta know that you're gonna be focused on it, that you're gonna take the necessary steps to finish and to stay on task.
I mean, I don't know if I agree with that necessarily. I went to school, I started in bio and did in engineering. I think Mike could say the same.
Well, I'm saying they don't finish at all. They don't finish anything.
Oh, yeah.
Like, not that they switch. You still got a degree. These people, I'm talking about people who, they go to school for 2 years, they take out 2 years worth of student loan debt, and then they stop and they leave and they don't come back.
That's poor decision making, because it's like when you take that debt.
That's for their entire life, though. That's just not college.
Yeah, I mean, it's like when you make that decision to borrow money to go to school, it's a large commitment. And it's like, yeah, shit gets rough, and I've seen some of my best friends say, yeah, college just isn't for me. You know? But it's like, if you're gonna borrow money from somebody to do that, right? As like, speaking as a student, you're borrowing that on the premise that you will be earning, you know, with the degree that you're borrowing for. So I don't know.
Some of it's on
It's
the
an
lender too.
investment.
Yeah, that's my
here's the other
thought.
thing,
You
too,
know,
and the side we're not talking about too is the lender should be on the hook too, right?
Wells
So
Fargo
in
fucked me
any
out
other-
of thousands of dollars with a private student loan that I took from them. Thousands.
I think I threw. Yeah, I remember you
Dude,
telling
I was
me about
like,
this. The high interest
No,
rate.
no. The rate's not even high. Like, if you look at the documentation and how much I have paid to them, I'm literally like, I don't understand how I've paid them so much money, and I have an applied mathematics degree. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, I'm looking at how much I paid them historically. I paid on this loan for almost 4 years, and I finally paid it off. I had paid thousands on it for years and still owed like the principal amount. And I was paying much more than what interest should have been. But it's like Wells Fargo's also been in trouble multiple times for shady fucking business practices like this, especially with student loans. And, you know, it's like, I think they went through the last one a couple years ago, and I'm sitting here like, yo, they've got caught with shady shit multiple times since I've had my loan. And I'm sitting here like, I'm pretty sure they've still been fucking me. I'm, you know, I'm getting a little worked up. Wells Fargo, fuck y'all, give me my money back.
Invest in the podcast.
Yeah. If Wells Fargo saw this and refunded the $2,000 to $3,000 in excess they took from me as a poor, starving student, I would take that money and put it directly back in the podcast.
If only they really did that, Mike.
Boy.
Well, yeah, and again, you know, I firmly believe that if you take out an investment, you are liable for that investment.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, 100%.
But unfortunately,
But
it's
so should be
a
the
weird
lender,
system.
right?
Oh, yeah.
The lender, if nobody's lending you a house if they don't think you're going to be able to pay for it. Nobody's lending for you to buy a car if they don't think they're going to get their fucking money back.
Well, they did in 2008.
Well, they
which was part of
did,
the problem.
and we bailed them out like fucking idiots. But the point is, that's not how the debt and lending situation is set up, and it's not supposed to be.
I read an article that student loans were going to be the next bubble, like 2008.
Well, what's the bubble? Well, yeah, I mean, what do you think paying off student loan debt is? That's
No,
the
but I'm
bailout.
saying so many people are going to default on it that there's going to need to be a bailout for it.
How do you bail that
With
out?
fucking,
You just forgive it.
it's like, it's a paradox, right? Because the only way you can like truly make the bailout there is by educating these fuckers to like make better decisions. But it's ironic because, you know, it's like, you think for people to make better decisions, they should get an education. But we're talking about people who either took loans out and didn't finish their education, or people who supposedly got this education, but apparently now can't find work. I don't understand when people say they can't find work, because it's like, I don't know. I feel like there's always work. I feel like people just don't want to move from where they're at to like go to work.
Well, I think there's a
that came
difference between good work and work.
I mean, what the fuck
right
is
now.
good work? Work is work, you know? It's just shit to
I
make
know,
other
but,
people
like,
money.
Your job or working on the side of the road, laying road, you know, like it's work, don't get me wrong, but there is obviously a desirability depending on what sort of job you're talking about. And I'm not giving them an excuse, but right now, especially during COVID, there is a sheer lack of employment. I mean, you're seeing millions of people going unemployed.
I mean, I hear millions of people going on unemployment. I see the numbers. Locally, it hardly looks like anything's changed. You know, honestly, you know, this gets back into what Chappie was saying with regulation. I see people going unemployed because government has mandated shutdowns. You know, and it's not just shutdowns, the constraints they put on like the cafeterias and stuff. You know, I was talking to the lady that runs ours, and I'm not going to go into too many details, but due to like state regulations on like the things they can and can't serve right now because of COVID, like they can't make the money they were making. So in turn, they're having to cut their staff down because they can't do these things that are profitable because, oh, you can't you can't put the soup out here that people can serve themselves because they could COVID, you know? And it's like, from the COVID perspective, sure, I get it. Let's be safe. From the business perspective, like those regulations are causing, in this case, this business to lose money and in turn short-staffing its people. So then,
which is why people said the best thing about Trump getting into office was all the regulations.
I'm just like, well, in this case, this is state, not necessarily federal, but
yeah, it's not federal.
But I mean, it's regulation nonetheless.
It's just the thought process is the same, right? Regulation at the state level or regulation at the federal level hinders growth.
But that's one of my favorite left-leaning things to say now, that Trump is an authoritarian. Like, this is literally the best opportunity for an authoritarian to take over in the history of the entire United States. This would be the best opportunity for it, and he literally didn't do it. He said, states make your own decisions. So, like, people just don't know what they're fucking saying. When people say capitalism, they don't understand that bailouts are not part of capitalism. When people say authoritarian, they don't. Because
from a presidential perspective, dude's like, yo, states do the things states are supposed to do, and we'll be isolationist.
And it's because they fucking slept through all their fucking classes and dropped out 2 years into their education that they all want us to pay for now.
No, I mean, for real though, y'all can pay those student loans. I would not be upset. I was just, reiterating that I would love if my student loans disappeared right now.
I bet you would. I bet a lot of people would.
Would you guys like if somebody dropped a $30,000 check on you right now?
All right, so what do you think? What do you think the majority of Americans with student debt do when their student loans get relieved of them? Do you think they suddenly learn financial sense and start saving and investing?
They buy booze.
Or do you think they're...
It's probably 50-50, honestly.
Buying a nice new car, going out and buying a nice new car that's well outside their means. Their bar tabs are suddenly going to be a lot. Which do you think is? Really
I think it's going to be both.
Into the economy.
If you've got somebody that's got habits or addictions, like if you're addicted to alcohol and you've got more money, I don't know, you're probably already drinking a fair amount of alcohol, but maybe you buy more, maybe you don't. If you lose a $300 to $400 a month student loan payment, who's to say you don't buy a new car with that money? Now it's freed up. I could honestly use a new car. I don't really want to buy a new one because mine's paid for. But I would definitely be much more.
How is buying a new car plugging that money back into the economy, Tim? It's giving your money to another big corporation.
Well, unless you buy from a used car lot. What's up?
You can buy used cars lot, yeah. And then
we said new, like
Toyota.
Well, new. I say new to me. Sorry, new to me, because I won't buy a used car.
Buying a used car would not be a super bad investment if you need a fucking car. Like that's.
I would never buy a new car.
Yeah, but that money will eventually.
Unless I got millions to make.
Even if it's a Toyota,
jobs
still owned in a local.
Still got to get the materials.
Average Joe Schmo 26-year-old who has 45.
Wait, so you're saying manufacturing jobs in the Midwest aren't important, Chappie?
Wait, hold on. Let's hear it, because I bought a car before I was 26. I bought lots of cars, but that's beside one. Go on.
I'm saying average Joe Schmo who's currently living paycheck to paycheck, not loving his life, not getting to do a whole lot because he's strapped with all this debt. 45 grand college debt gets removed.
Obviously he's putting in his emergency fund, Chapman.
You think he's going out and buying. So like when I bought the first car I bought for myself, it was a 2010 Toyota Camry. I spent $10,000 cash for a used car that would last me probably the rest of my fucking life if I wanted it. Do you think that guy's going out and buying that? Or do you think he's going out and, dropping 25 grand on a newer, nicer car? The car that's, brand new or close to brand new.
I bought my grandma's old car.
Well, there'll be those people who make that decision, and then there'll be people that do well with that money. It's hard to say that somebody else wouldn't go and invest that money.
And who are we to say what they do with the money? But
exactly.
Don't come back asking for help after you made poor decisions.
What they would do or what they should do. I think if we bail people out, we should get a say in what happens to the money. That money, I don't think it should be plugged in. It should not be.
If we were bailing people out,
man.
but I don't want to have to bail anybody out. So I say, I am a big fan of Darwinism and natural selection. Like even to the like in a societal perspective, like if people want to make bad decisions, fucking let them. Because the problem is, it's like if you try to educate people, you try to educate people so they make good decisions for you, and they resent you for it. You know what I'm saying? Parents try to educate their kids, they get resented by their kids. And I think the same thing goes for society. You know, it's like you want people to make good decisions because you make good decisions, but then these same people who can't make good decisions, you know, turn around and complain because things aren't going their way. You're over here like, well, no fucking shit. You're making horrible choices.
But then, I mean, look, and then the next time they need help, it's going to be the same thing, and we're going to tell them the same thing, and they're going to have every excuse in the book for why it didn't work out or why it was unfair for them, and then we're going to have to bail them out.
Everybody's always got an excuse. Ownership. People just don't take ownership for things. Like some people do, but I trying to remember what it was. I was talking to something the other day where somebody, I forgot what it was. I really wish I could remember, but they were telling me how whatever we were talking about, it was like they were blaming their problems literally on everyone but themselves. And I'm sitting here like thinking how this could be your fault, like so many ways, but I didn't hear them even consider, like even stop to remotely consider themselves as being responsible for the issues they were facing. It's just somebody else's fault.
Yeah. No personal responsibility. That's the problem. And it's in so many things. It was we talked about abortion on last week's episode 0.
Episode 0.
No personal responsibility for decisions that you have made. I don't know.
Hey, yeah, I mean, I know you were pro-life. I mean, there's still some responsibility there. You know?
What do you mean?
Well, so you talk about abortion, you're saying there's no responsibility there for the decisions you make. What are you referring to?
I'm referring to a person making a decision to engage in sexual intercourse, becoming pregnant, and then terminating the pregnancy.
Well,
because
maybe they were thinking far ahead. They knew that they were currently getting a fuck ton of student debt, and maybe they were concerned with the quality of life that this future human would have.
Ah, God. So I don't know, man. I if it was me personally, and you asked me as a baby, hey, you can either have no life or a really hard life, I will take the really hard life.
Obviously, because at that point you're sentient, but a thing in the womb is not sentient. Like not yet. I don't even think you start remembering shit until fucking like 2 or 3 years old. I think it's more like 2. But like, I don't know. And it's like consciousness is a complex question. It's a very hard thing to understand, and we've been trying to grasp at it for ages. But it's like, if you take a baby out of the womb and ask it that same question, it's not going to know what the fuck you're saying. It doesn't even know what language is yet. I don't know. It's like not really to do with the topic of abortion necessarily, but I was, back to the point. I'm just saying that said abortionists could be, is that a word? Abortionist? Could be doing some future planning.
I think it's anyway, I don't want to rehash the whole for anyone who didn't see episode 0, I don't want to tell women what to do with their bodies. I just believe that at a certain point, a fetus, while it's still in the mother's womb, becomes a baby. And at that point, it's a human. And I feel like it being a human means it deserves some sort of a say or shouldn't be terminated, just because the woman wants it to. Because at that point, it's a human. It has its own, it deserves its own right to life. That's my stance. It's not about telling women what to do. It's more about at what point does it become a baby, and at that point, let's not kill it. But let's cut that off there. Put the doghouse around. Talk about abortion. But I don't know. Yeah, I think there need to be some changes with student loan debt for for example, you can't declare bankruptcy with student loan debt. Like they need to. The problem is that the government backs the loans, right? And what that means is the taxpayer backs the loans. And so schools see that no matter what, the loans are guaranteed. So why wouldn't I raise my prices? Why, if I knew you're going to pay whatever I ask, why would I keep my prices down? Like, you're going to keep paying for it.
That's the serious dilemma, and that's why tuition rates have kept going up, because they know that it's backed by the taxpayer and the federal government. So, and again, if you make student loans private loans again, instead of making them federal loans, then you have the banks who will have to take on the responsibility of assessing whether or not people who apply for loans should get them. But then that goes into the questions, are the banks, being discriminatory on who they select to go to college and therefore influencing the rest of their life? This
so
is not
complex.
very cut and dry. It really is, because then you start getting into, okay, so how do you create a system that can allow people to go and take out investments when they have no collateral because they're still children, unless you put their parents' collateral up? And then what if your parents don't want you to go to college, but you still want to go? I mean, there's a whole lot. Like, if I get a loan with the house is collateral. If I get a student loan and I default on that loan, they don't take my degree.
Yeah, the issue, it's like the degrees too, because it's like, I don't know. We talk about school, and I just think about how like dominant information is now, and it's like you really can go on the internet and learn pretty much anything you want to learn without paying for it. Like, the majority of the stuff I studied in school, I promise you, exists on the internet, because that's how my fucking ass made it through school. But like, the difference is credentials.
I agree, but
you get a piece of paper saying you did a thing.
If you're an employer, Mike, you're looking for a degree as well.
Well, no, if you're an employer, you're looking for a degree. Back to what I'm saying, because it's like validity that this person has learned something. Because while the information's free, what means you're going to actually learn it?
And it's
no, they have character, sure.
Well, no, I mean, it's not character, but at least you made it through the degree and put in all the work that's necessary to earn the degree. You put up with all the BS that the colleges had you
put up with our BS.
So yeah, I mean, again, if you don't want the taxpayer to cover the federal loans, which is the reason why colleges are raising tuitions, because they can know they get a certain amount of money regardless, and they're going to constantly have more people applying than can actually go, and they're going to pack the classrooms and remove educators,
like an airline boy,
lower the education because they can, because the demand's so high, because they know that employers are going to require having a degree for a lot of these entry-level positions, which are going to set you up for a mid-level to a high-level executive position. So it's a vicious cycle, because then if you take it out of the public realm, put it in the private realm, then there's all sorts of other issues. So how do you fund college without giving the incentive for the college to increase price?
Why can't you? I mean, it's not. A lot of schools are state. Why? How do they not have? They still have control. They can still put certain things in place to. For example, if you're afraid that minorities are going to be discriminated against because banks are the ones controlling the loans, the state can still have control over what the college costs. What it
not
costs
minorities. I would say that the discrimination that would likely occur from that situation is a socioeconomic discrimination. The banks will give me a better loan than they will give Mike, because my parents has a higher net worth than Mike's does.
Yeah, but my point is, set it up to where not everybody needs the same loan. If the school is a state-run school, you can look at where each person is at from a socioeconomic standpoint, and you offer financial aid, whatever, through the state, through the school. And the school that allows certain people to be able to come to the school, because they're not necessarily going to have to pay as much. The loans they have to take out aren't as significant, and they're in a better place. There are all sorts of things you can do with it.
That's all fine and dandy. I understand that there are things that you could tweak and make it better, but keep in mind that all of this has to go through Congress, whether it's state Congress or federal Congress. So I mean, again, that's the human factor, and everyone's worried about their own constituents and their own well-being. So you might have. I don't think you would come out with a perfect law from it. And
I don't know, man. There's all kinds of things. Tennessee, for example, they set it up to where you can go to community college at no charge for the first 2 years. Anybody can go to community college for 2 years, and then you can transfer in to finish a 4-year degree. That's what my cousin's doing. I had a cousin which I don't know how smart he actually is.
Smart enough to get free college.
Well, he's not an athlete. He's not into that sort of thing, and so I think he very much defined his identity as like school and being good at school. So I don't know how he actually is, but he's at least somewhat intelligent. He's trying to go for physical therapy, but 2 years for free. And he's knocked out his first 2 years. He's actually probably a little ahead than the first 2 years because he had a lot of credit that he brought over from high school as well. And he's going to finish out. I think he's finishing out at Tennessee.
That would have probably saved me $15,000.
Yeah, I mean it's a program they've set up to help. Well, and the thing is, man, you finish those 2 years, like that you can finish a 2-year degree, and you're in a better place already. And
now you can manage them all files.
So there's a number of ways to set it up. My big thing, and I read this online, and I thought it was a good idea. My big thing is I think schools need to be on the hook for providing very specific information about what you are going to have to pay. So you could say that, it's always very complicated about what school is going to cost. Schools should be charged with making that very straightforward and simple. This is what your education is going to cost. This is what, if you take out the loans necessary for this education, this is what your monthly loan payments will be once you graduate. And then they also need to gather, and really it doesn't even have to be the school. The government should be able, because the government's in charge of the loans, government should be able to put this information together itself. But they also need to provide you, okay, what school are you going to? What's your major? Calculate what your average monthly income will be with a major from that, in that specific major from that specific school. On average, what do those people make? And let you see the numbers. And do they align? On average, are you making more on a monthly basis than what you're going to owe? And if you are, how much more? Is it a sustainable lifestyle? And that would make it so much easier for you to say, you don't have to be a fucking math major to see numbers and realize, those don't really add up. Like, I'm not going to be able to afford it.
Shouldn't that be like a guidance counselor role in high school? Shouldn't that be something a guidance counselor should do?
You got to put it on the schools, because the thing is, what will happen is,
well, that's what I'm saying. That's
on the colleges.
Well, why don't we put it into the
so they can plan prior to being at the college?
No, well, it is. I mean, it's a lead up. This isn't happening. It's happening in the decision.
I get the sentiment though.
Where you're going to go to school. But the thing about it this way: the process. The reason you're putting this process in place is to bring down the college cost, to bring down tuition cost. So the thought process being that if students start seeing that music education degree is going to cost me $800 a month after I'm out of school, and I'm only going to be making $500 a month, which again, these are just random numbers. Once people start seeing, hey, that degree doesn't really make a lot of fucking sense, they're going to stop going, and they're not going to have anybody enrolling, and they're going to realize, oh, we actually have to lower the cost of this, of going to this school to get this degree, because it's not feasible. It doesn't make any fucking sense for anybody to come here to get this degree. And that will drive costs down. It will drive the price of that degree down. And for, certain degrees that are worth a lot more, mechanical engineering, for example, if that's one that makes more money, it'll make sense and more people will enroll. So it would both benefit the college in being able to show its value, while also benefiting the consumer by letting the consumer know, hey, this is probably not the best decision to make. And that will in turn force the college to adjust and lower the prices to a place that makes sense.
I would say two things to that. First is there's an alternate to that, to where the colleges are forced to reduce tuition based on expected post-college outcome or post-college salary. Whereas instead of using the free market to drive the cost of that college down, you basically say, look, the people who make it on average outside of this college make this month, they would only be able to afford this much tuition up front for interest and all of that. Then you can force the college to adjust the tuition that way. But
how do you lump all those different? I mean, it's such a wide range of degrees and a wide range of future
I mean, you're saying the same
occupations.
thing, but the opposite direction. You're basically saying provide the exact same information, but instead of to the colleges, to the students. So I mean, there's that, and then the other thing I would
Well,
say.
no, I'm saying the colleges. My part is the colleges have to provide the information to the students. The colleges have to gather that information of what you're going to pay after you're done, and what it's going to cost, what you're going to have to pay once you're done, and what.
Cappy's like, I want to buy it like a car.
No, and I'm saying the exact same thing, Chappie. The college would look at what the expected salary is of their students in each different major getting out of college.
Come on.
And then from the expected average salary, they should be able to extrapolate what the tuition of said college should be for the students in order for them to not default on their loan. I mean, you're saying it so basically the student has the choice. Yeah, so I mean, either way, it gets to the same outcome. It's just two different ways to cut it. But the only
but you can't force. But your way is forcing the college to do it,
right?
And I don't think you can do that. That's
well,
not...
I mean, your way is forcing the college to do it too. It's just
not really. The college, if the college wants to leave its cost as high as it is, and nobody enrolls, like that's their
free market, baby.
But you're economically, I know, but it's still technically.
It's really just it's forcing them to equip the consumer with the knowledge the consumer should have, but it's hard to get right now. It's hard to get to the bottom of what college actually costs. It's hard for a 17 or 18-year-old to understand the burden of actual significant debt. It's just
that falls within the parents and the guys.
Maybe we should just give credit cards to kids earlier.
Time out though. The other thing I would say on that,
we're gonna put Tim in the doghouse for timing us out.
You're also gonna oversaturate those markets, meaning that you're gonna have a shit ton of people who go into STEM, and very little people who end up going into liberal arts, which is not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, we can use the people. But we're always looking. It's so hard to find good help.
So hard to find good help.
I'm just saying, there's already an oversaturation of lawyers.
Consider this too. What it also does is it forces colleges to invest more in getting their students jobs after college. Because if you have an average that you've got to show people, then those 50 students out of the 500 that graduated in that major that year, those 50 students that don't have jobs, they're bringing your average down. So you as a college then need to invest. Maybe it's not necessarily lowering your tuition for that particular major or
so much as partnering with some companies.
And making sure that everybody that comes out of this fucking school has a job, and that will benefit the consumer as well. You'll get people employed.
That's already incentive, I would say, because I mean, I would think it's already incentive for colleges to do that because
kind of how I got my
job. When I looked at colleges and I was trying to decide on what degree and stuff, I did look at average salary out of school. So I was like, okay, so what's the average salary of an FSU engineer out of college? But again, I mean, I'm not going to say I think like everyone else does, but I see colleges promote that already.
Yeah, and I mean, I got my job at a career fair at the college, so it's like...
I think they have incentive to get their students employed out of college because that is something that is highly
I think those numbers still exist that they're trying to protect already.
Yeah. But I don't disagree with you, Chappie. I think that there is obviously a better way to do it. And I'm not saying yours is the wrong way to do it. I kind of like your idea because it does rely more on the free market than it is just telling them. But again, I think the colleges has a responsibility to publish that information. I don't think they have a responsibility to disseminate that information. I think the person who is responsible for disseminating that information obviously relies on the parents first and foremost, and secondarily falls upon their
education.
Their schools, their high schools.
Well, so look, here's the thing though. If you're forcing it back on, you've said parents, you've said guidance counselors. Those are variables that you don't have control over. Not every student has parents, and not every student has not every school has a guidance counselor or has a good guidance counselor who's actually going to do their job and not just be some drunk asshole, just making money to do nothing. So
you have more control over them than you do private institutions like universities. Like you can't make Notre Dame tell them tell the students what to do with money, but you damn sure can tell.
You absolutely, if you
high
are the
school.
federal government and you are backing every single loan that pays for the fucking education for every single student that goes to any of these schools, you can absolutely make some rules. That's
the only thing the federal government could do is say, I'm not going to give you any more.
Yeah, he's talking about you can make rules.
Nobody goes to
no,
Notre
you
Dame.
can make rules for Notre Dame, but I don't think that's what Tim's saying. He was talking about the kids, I'm pretty sure.
Well, I'm just saying, you have, as a government, whether it's state or federal, you have more control over high school.
Yeah, he's saying you can influence curriculum and the high
control.
school and say teach kids more better habits.
Yeah, whether it's the guidance counselor, the principal, or the fucking SRO, I don't care who it is. I'm just saying, you have people in place already. You have the infrastructure already there. Use the infrastructure that's already there. Disseminate the information appropriately to the kids at the time when they're trying to make the decision. That's junior year in college or high school. I mean, we're starting to apply for colleges junior year in high school. That's the time where you get in. Sophomore year of high school, that's the time you get in.
Yeah.
These magnet programs like IB
AP,
or
ACE, any of those.
that's also a good area to get in as well.
I don't know. I think there are a lot of schools that don't have the resources to be able to focus. High schools that don't have the resources to be able to focus.
I mean, maybe. We went to like a D school in the middle of the hood, and I mean, they did all right. Not saying we're like an inner city school, but
that's a different conversation, Joe Chappie. The I guess the bad investments made into public education at the high school level is a different issue altogether than putting the responsibility on the high school to educate the kids about the next steps. I think those are two separate conversations. Though it does bleed over, I agree with you. There are places that are under-equipped, but if you want to talk about under-equipped schools, I would agree with you. There's perhaps an opportunity for more investments in different areas there.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd rather
still
put
think
it on
the
responsibility.
Well,
if you want the federal money,
I guess.
If you want the federal money, here's what you got to do. It's that simple. If the federal government is what's funding every single loan that goes into these schools, there's only so much there's only so many full payer students out there who aren't getting student loans. There's only so many of them, and no school will be able to survive without at least having some percentage of their student population being federal loan students that are getting student loans. So that gives the government an enormous amount of power to be able to, and you're not forcing anything. You're not forcing the schools to do anything except provide a certain amount of information. And again, really, the schools don't even have to do it. The government has access to that information and can disseminate it itself. I just don't think the government is good at anything. So I don't think it would be the best idea to have the government put it together. But if you put the onus on the school, it gives them the opportunity to see what they're doing, how their decisions are affecting students, the right decisions to lower costs where it makes sense.
Again, I think you're putting a little too much faith in that system. I also think that if you give the opportunity for the schools to put together the literature on what the cost will be, whatever
it's gonna be doctored as fuck.
Yeah, I mean it's either going to be doctored or it's going to be displayed in a way that no one can really understand. It's going to be like a prospectus of some sort of IRA or something. It's going to be written in language that's going to be difficult to digest. And that's why I'm saying, if you want to do it right, or if the government wants to do it the way that they want to do it and display the information the way they want to display, they do it at the high school level because they have more control at that point. I mean, granted, they could always pull the loans, but then you have colleges like Yale and Harvard that have think tanks that influence congressional leadership into writing the laws so that they're excluded, so only certain schools are included in that. It's a slippery slope at that point. The higher level academia's got a lot of sway at the congressional level and at the corporate level, I think. A lot more than I think people give them credit for.
Does FSU have a lazy river?
I wish we did. That would be dope. We did have the Res, which was like out in the forest, this big lake. people do like paddleboard yoga out there, but no lazy river.
Yeah, Wabash, you didn't even at Wabash you didn't even pick your major until you were like halfway through sophomore year.
Yeah, I mean, we couldn't really declare. We picked pre-engineering at FSU. You don't really declare until 2 years. Well, you boys want to wrap it up for the evening?
Yeah, I'm good with that. My phone's gonna die soon.
That's
anyway,
how it goes. Well, I think it's been a...
Well, tell Erica not to spill any more nail polish remover.
Yeah, it's really harshing on my RuneScape vibe.
Damn it, Erica.
It does this thing where like it'll somehow the airplane mode button is getting pressed over and over, and so it'll just kick me out of the game because it'll be turning the internet off.
Have you
off,
considered
off,
taking the
watch
keyboard
this.
apart and cleaning it?
Yeah, that's the plan at some point. I don't know. She may do it tomorrow. Just take the back off and try to figure out if she can clean it out, and if that'll work, then great. If it doesn't, then we'll look at maybe replacing the keyboard.
I'll say I wouldn't run too
I'm
much
sure
power
there's
through it
some
until you
Asian
clean it.
joke I'm sure there's some Asian joke in there about repairing a broken keyboard.
Put him in the
Doghouse. Uncalled for. On that note, guys, we're going to go ahead. We will catch you guys next week.
The people want to know, is Joe going to be back?
Will Joe be back? Find out next week on the Doghouse.